Hi, I'm Helen Roberts from XV Insight.
And I'm Heather Cotton from Webropol UK.
Welcome to the first in a series of short webinars in which we share our perspective on how best to understand your customers' experiences and how to ensure they are happy and loyal. There are 5 webinars in the series, each lasting around 5 minutes. They're jointly produced by Webropol, a web-based survey and analytics tool provider, and XV Insight, a market research and insight consultancy. We'll be releasing the content in blog posts over the coming weeks. If you'd like to access the full set of webinars, please visit either webropol.com, xvinsight.com or our Twitter feeds for links and more information. In this first webinar, we explore why happy customers matter to every organisation, their value to you and the cost of losing them. When we use the word customer, we really mean anyone who your organisation serves. They may be other businesses, consumers who purchase from you, diners in your restaurant, patients in your clinic, visitors to your attraction or event. They're all customers. That customers should be at the heart of your organisation. After all, they're the reason you're there, and without them you would not exist. This quote, attributed to Gandhi in his early years, sums it up. A customer is the most important visitor on our premises. He is not dependent on us, we are dependent on him. He is not an interruption of our work, he is the purpose of it. We're not doing him a favour by serving him, he's doing us a favour by allowing us to do so. It's not rocket science to work out why happy customers matter. If customers are satisfied, or rather delighted, with the service you provide, they're more likely to come back to you and more likely to recommend you to others. That reduces the cost of remedial action to make unhappy customers happier and reduces the cost of churn. There are many different figures quoted, and it clearly varies across sectors and customer types. But the fact remains it costs a lot more to attract a new customer than it does to retain a current one. If a customer is unhappy with the way they're treated, they're more likely to leave a brand. Often that decision is driven by the way staff interact over the product itself. One bad experience can take a long time and a lot of good experiences to recover from. For an improving organisation, that's a challenge, as reputation often lags reality, and a business that was poor in the past needs to be right for some time before customers accept it's a genuine change. Great customer experiences come in many different guises. Consistently good service levels mean customers know what to expect and are confident that the service delivery will meet those expectations. A restaurant that is immaculately clean, serves consistently good food, whose staff are always polite, friendly and efficient, and charges a very fair price, will provide an experience the customers trust and will be likely to lead to recommendation to others. But it can also be the unexpected moments of delight that can turn an emotionally unengaging transaction into something special. Buying printer ink is at best a routine purchase and at worst a distress purchase. Choice of retailer driven by cheap prices and hassle-free order and delivery. I ordered the wrong ink, entirely my own fault. When I got in touch to sort out a refund and reorder, they were incredibly helpful, making sure I had the right ones and arranging a free of charge express next day delivery. The speed of refund on the returns was impressive too. They behaved as if it were their fault, not mine, and provided a level of service you would expect from a premium supplier, not a price-driven online retailer. I'm now their #1 fan. Clearly, it's not always possible to keep every customer happy all of the time, though that shouldn't stop organisations from striving for that goal. But it is important to realise the impact that unhappy customers can have on your business.
It would be wrong to assume you know what your customers think without actually asking them. Clearly, business metrics such as customer loyalty, basket size, repeat visits, churn rates, and so on are important indicators. They tell you how you're performing in the here and now, but you invariably need to know more from your customers in order to improve many of those metrics.
In the past, an individually good or bad experience was shared with a small group of associates. We might ask a colleague or friend for a recommendation, but now it's far more public. Review sites are increasingly shaping how we transact. Before we book a holiday, we seek out reviews of accommodation providers, travel companies and destinations. Before we buy the latest tech product, we read reviews, trying to sift out the paid-for advertorial reviews and awards as we search for the opinions of people like us. We even check out patient reviews of doctors and healthcare providers so that we can form an expectation before the appointment. The review culture is making the need to deliver great customer service even more business critical. It's also impacting the need to make sure that remedial action is swift and effective when things go wrong. If you needed more convincing of this point, then look no further than eBay, a business built almost entirely out of the power of reviews. We happily transact with unknown sellers online, based purely on their eBay rating. If it's anything less than 99.9%, we think twice before buying. So don't ever slip into thinking that the odd negative feedback doesn't matter. Review sites can tell you what a minority of customers think, either highlighting strengths to maintain or issues that may be tackled on an individual customer basis. Reviews often give immediate feedback and can be hugely valuable, but they will only ever be part of the story, rarely allowing you to identify the scale of an issue or establish whether they represent the majority view. So, in summary, we can see just how important contented, satisfied customers are to every organisation. The more delighted those customers are, the more the scales swing in your organisation's favour. This second webinar explores the basic principles of customer research and assesses some of the options for how to gather feedback from your customers. It's worth taking stock of how much you really know about your customers and what they think of you. How do you gather feedback from them? Do you really know whether they're satisfied? Do you know what delights them? Do you know what causes them distress? And if you do know the answers to those questions, are your customer needs driving your strategy? On a more tactical level, are your customer-facing staff empowered to keep customers happy? If you would answer no, or even I'm not sure, to any of those questions, then you likely need to get more feedback from your customers. So, you've decided you want to get feedback from your customers. What are the rules you should put in place to do this effectively? There's a number of key points that we think are important to tackle. Number one, try to reach a representative sample of your customers, or even better, give all your customers an opportunity to give their feedback. Number two, think about those people who didn't actually transact, but who are still your customers. People who browsed your website, came into your store, looked at your trade stand, came with a patient as a supporter or a carer. These people are important too. Their experiences matter, but they're often harder to reach. Number three, think about all the touch points your customers have with you. It's not just about the store experience or the event or the appointment. The touch points that lead up to it are vital. Was your website easy to use? How was the booking process? Could they find what they were looking for? Was the call centre helpful? And it doesn't stop at the transaction. Was the after-sales support good? Were follow-up actions taken? Did the product or service perform as it should? You can't necessarily ask everyone about every touch point, but collectively they make up the overall perception of your organisation. Number four, strive for in-moment or real-time feedback. Asking someone how their experience was 3 months after a routine transaction will give you little detail and might not even be accurately recalled. If they had a bad experience, contacting them long after the event will do little to improve their view of you, and in the meantime they may well have written negative reviews and told friends and colleagues about their poor experience. If you ask for feedback close to the point of experience, it will be accurate and detailed, it will be relevant to the customer and will be actionable for you. We'll talk more in later webinars about what to ask and how to get the most value out of the feedback you get from customers, but for now, let's look at the methods you can use. Online surveys are the best approach, offering flexibility and value, and we'll talk about them in more detail later, but it's worth spending a few moments looking at some of the alternatives. In days gone by, market research was typically done using interviewers who asked questions face to face. There are still times when this is appropriate, particularly if you're looking for detailed feedback from hard to reach groups. However, it's expensive and is rarely the best solution for customer experience feedback. The same goes for telephone interviews. People are busy and increasingly hostile towards unsolicited phone calls. Again, in some scenarios, it's still a method to consider, but you need detail or want to show important customers you care, for example, in a business-to-business environment where you're reliant on small numbers of very big customers. Pen and paper surveys were for many years the mainstay of customer experience research, whether handed out in the store or at an event or posted out to customers whose details were known. It's a cost-effective way of reaching large volumes of customers or visitors. It does, however, have a significant hidden cost associated with processing of completed surveys. And whilst feedback may have been provided close to the point of experience, the time to process questionnaires can delay feedback. DIY survey tools are increasingly popular at the moment, using one of the many free or low-cost survey systems that allow you to write your own questionnaire and produce your own analysis. These surveys have their place when you need quick answers to simple questions, but they're rarely the best primary way of getting robust customer satisfaction feedback. Qualitative research, where you talk to just a few customers in detail, is great for providing insight on why, but doesn't tell you the share of customers with that view.
For the majority of organisations, an online survey is the best approach to use. The survey should typically be set up centrally and can then be accessed through a variety of routes. Where you know your customers, you can send an invitation via email immediately after they have interacted with a touchpoint. You can hand out survey invitations to visitors with details of how to go online to take part. But best of all, you can install the survey on a tablet and make it available to visitors to your store, your event, or your tourist destination. This enables real-time survey completion and rapid analysis of the results. Visitors can tell you what they think immediately, and you can take actions if you need to, quickly and effectively. Using a tablet solution allows you to have flexibility. The tablet can be handheld to be passed around your patients or visitors, or it can be housed in a stand that can be situated in key locations, at the entrance or the exit, at the information desk, by main attractions, and so on. The questionnaire can easily be adapted to suit the immediate needs. For example, a core set of questions can then be supplemented with additional ones, perhaps about a particular aspect of your service or in response to changes you're making in the service you offer. The possibilities are almost endless.
So in this webinar, we've talked a little about the principles of getting representative feedback from customers and the various methods that can be used to do so. This third webinar explores the key points around survey design, helping you to ask the right questions of your customers.
In the first webinar, we covered some methods for collecting feedback, including paper, electronic surveys, telephone surveys, and tablet-based surveys. They each have advantages and disadvantages, and some are more appropriate for certain situations than others. However, a well-designed electronic survey is usually the best method of collecting feedback to use, as this gives the most flexibility and can be supplemented by other methods, such as sending a paper copy of the same electronic survey. The other advantage is the lower cost of this approach over any other. Designing the right survey takes effort and should always be tested with at least a few real customers to make sure it makes sense to them. The key principles to consider include: Number 1. Keep it short and simple. If it takes too long to complete or is complicated, your customers will not be happy and many will not complete the survey. As a benchmark, think about how long the customer is with you and how important you are to them. If they have spent 2 days at your trade show and it's vital to them, then you'll be able to ask them more than if they have dashed into your corner shop to buy a pint of milk. Number 2. Make sure you ask things that are relevant and important for the customer, even if you think you know the answer. Number 3. Think about what other information you have or other ways you can find out without always asking the customer. That way you won't overburden them. For example, your web analytics will tell you how long people spend on your website and the path they take through it. You don't necessarily need to ask visitors. You can monitor your car park to see if there are issues with it getting too full, although you might still want to ask people about it if you know it's a cause of complaint. Number 4. Use customer language in a style that's appropriate for your audience. Business-to-business questionnaires should be formal and straightforward. If you're gathering feedback from tourists, keep it cheerful and relaxed. Number 5. If you're going to ask people to rate their experience, think about the scale you use. It needs to really differentiate the great experiences from those that are simply good or good enough. Using a scale question makes it easier for respondents to complete. but is restricting in that they do not have the opportunity to add their own comments. Therefore, using open-ended question types can be beneficial to capture free comments, but you should be aware of completion errors and pay particular attention to where open-ended question types are placed. If these are placed at the beginning of the survey, respondents will have to put in more effort to complete the survey, which can seem like a burden. But if they are placed at the end of the survey, the respondent is more likely to complete these as a final step. Number 6. Don't forget the impact of GDPR regulations when collecting personal information. Choose the most appropriate way to collect answers to your electronic survey. You can send private links to customers' email addresses if you have them, personalise with an invitation, which may encourage them to respond as it is more personal and shows you value their feedback individually. These can also be sent manually or according to a schedule, making collecting feedback convenient and less labour-intensive for employees. You can also embed a public link on a website or social media, which can easily be shared and accessed, so may reach a wider pool of customers, but might result in incorrect responses and misuse as the link is available to all. Providing a survey via a tablet within a kiosk may also be misused or result in completion errors, so collecting feedback via a handheld tablet with a member of staff can be a good option to increase engagement and provide actionable results, but this is a labour-intensive method. You may need to adapt your survey to suit the devices you're expecting people to use when taking part. In simple summary, the smaller the device, the shorter and simpler the questionnaire needs to be.
Once you have your survey set up and designed, the next challenge is to encourage people to complete it. There are many options, and we do recommend you make use of some or all of these techniques. Promote the survey, whether through personal invitations to take part, invites on transaction receipts, email invitations and so on. Make sure people know that their experience matters to you and that it's easy for them to share their opinions. Make sure the survey is visible. Use a branded stand for the tablet, put posters around your site, promote it in publications and on your website. Get staff to encourage completion. This has to be handled carefully as it does run the risk of inducing bias, but there are a number of ways that staff can help encourage feedback. On arrival, staff can introduce visitors to the survey and ask them to complete it before they leave. At point of transaction, staff can ask customers to take part. At events, it can be helpful to have some staff near the tablet encouraging participation. So, in this webinar, we've talked through the basic principles of questionnaire design for running an online survey and some of the ways of maximising response rate. In this webinar, we look at how to make the most of the data you gather. It's all too easy to get lots of customer feedback but then not be able to make good use of it. We're going to look briefly at 5 topics today: big data and some of the truths and myths, the value of combining customer feedback with other data sources, how to keep the analysis and insight relevant for your organisation, advanced analytics, when and how to use them, and how to share feedback effectively. Big data is much talked about, often as a replacement for gathering information and insights from customers. The idea that we can take everything just by looking at data is a much debated topic. It's true we can find out a lot more than we used to be able to just from data at our fingertips. Visitor analytics can tell us all sorts of things about our customers: how many, how long they stayed, whether they transacted, what they saw, and so on, but it won't necessarily tell us what they liked and didn't like. Transaction data can tell us what was purchased, what was in the basket, whether spend is increasing or not. What it can't tell us is whether the customer got all they were looking for or whether they purchased something on impulse. Customer data tells us about habits and behaviour, frequency of purchase, spend, lifetime value, and so on, but it can't tell us what they wanted to shop more often or if they wanted to buy more. Web analytics can tell us a huge amount about website interaction, duration, path, pages visited, even other website usage if tracking tools are used. But we don't know if it was what the visitor wanted to be doing. Did they spend a long time because they were interested or because they couldn't find what they were looking for? So yes, big data can help paint the picture, but it still can't tell us everything, and in particular can rarely tell us why. Consequently, there is huge value in combining big data with other information. Combining with customer feedback can help to understand and explain. For example, movement in sales volumes may be understood through customer feedback on availability of the products they were looking for. Increasing visitor numbers may be explained through understanding why people visited, saw an advert recommended by a friend, and so on. Repeat visitor numbers may be down. Customer feedback may highlight an issue with the experience that can be addressed for the future. Combining data sources will always provide deeper insight.
Avoiding data overload in your organisation can be a challenge, so when analysing customer feedback, make sure it is relevant. Key to this is rapid turnaround. Getting results out quickly to those who can take actions is important. Collecting feedback is most valuable when the results allow for targeted and actionable improvement. Once the results are in, using them to contribute to improvement helps to get the most value from the feedback activity and shows consumers that you take their views seriously. Consider the best format in which to share your report, both internally and externally. This includes using software to create dashboards, providing a high-level view at a glance of important information which can be shared, or embedding a link to the report on websites or social media increases accessibility and means the results will reach a wider pool. Sending the report via a newsletter or private email provides the opportunity to include a personalised note and shows customers that you value their opinion, as it demonstrates you said, we did. In a similar vein, make sure you share the right information with the relevant audiences. Not everyone needs to see all the data every time. Leadership teams typically need to know the headlines and the main focus areas. Individual teams need to know the overall customer sentiment and the feedback for their areas of responsibility. Sharing too much information can make it hard for the audience to work out what's important to them. Creating action plans or storyboards with your team, highlighting areas of success and improvement, can open a discussion and help team members feel accountable for improvement actions, and involving them is motivating and empowers them. Sharing customer feedback effectively is perhaps the biggest challenge of all. Engaging your whole team in what customers are saying is vital if you are to deliver ever better customer experiences. The principles for achieving this are very similar to those for questionnaire design. Keep it simple and focused. Share the outcomes and implications that are most relevant to the audience. Use the styles of reporting that will resonate best with your audience. Charts, infographics, and workshops are often more effective than dry written reports. Make sure the priority is always on the so what. If there isn't an obvious resulting action, then the data may not be important. But in this case, remember that keep doing what you're currently doing is an action.
Advanced analytics is something that for many is a daunting topic area, but in simple terms, it's about using statistical analysis to increase the amount you can learn from the data. The most valuable techniques in customer experience research will help you to understand what's most important to your customers. If you know what has the biggest impact on their overall opinion, you can prioritise your actions to those areas. It's not always the obvious things that make the biggest difference, and people are not always able to articulate what matters most. Hence, the use of advanced analytics to uncover that truth. We can look at what delights your customers and what causes them distress. We look at patterns of consistency or inconsistency in service levels. We can explore how different customer groups feel and trends over time. All these and other techniques provide you with a deeper understanding of your customers, and from that you can make more informed decisions to improve still further the customer experience. Software packages such as that provided by Webropol give you access to a host of analytics, including these professional statistics or text mining solutions, to provide greater insight into the data collected, and can be used to monitor trends and correlations, including word clouds, which are easy to understand, so can be effective when sharing with a wide network of people. Webropol and XP Insight can provide training and support on both software package usage and how to generate the best insight from it. So today we've looked at approaches to analysis and maximising the insight from your research. In this final webinar, we take a look at making sure the customer is at the heart of your organisation and is the driving force behind your strategy and your day-to-day decisions. We've seen how happy customers are the key to a successful business. In order to know if your customers are happy, you have to engage with them and get their feedback. But then you have to listen to what they say and act on what they want. Doing customer research and leaving it in a box to gather dust is not enough. You have to have the voice of the customer running through your organisation. So, what does a customer-centric business look like? The start point is to make sure the whole organisation knows who the customer is and what they want. There may be different types of customers with different needs. It's important that those are understood and everyone knows how their needs differ and perhaps which ones are most important. Some companies have personas of their customers in meetings. When decisions are being made, they check what their customers might think. If the whole team really knows the customer and tries to see the business from their perspective, then that persona may not be necessary. However, it's not always easy to see things from the customer perspective. How can your team know what it feels like to come to your venue for the first time? They last did that several years ago, so they know the way. People who work in the automotive industry rarely know what it's like to buy a brand new car. They don't go through that process, and if they do, it's with a huge brand bias attached. A healthcare professional is not a normal patient. They know the jargon and the process behind the outward-facing experience. Sharing customer feedback widely and regularly is an important part of ensuring that the customer is at the heart of a business. An important tool in this process is to understand the customer journey, mapping out every step they take, from first identifying the need or desire for a product or service that you provide, through seeking out ideas and information from you and others, making the final decision, completing the transaction, and using any after-sales support or follow-up. Most journeys are, in reality, rarely linear or done in isolation. Stages in the journey overlap. Individual purchase journeys overlap. Paths change. Late decision influences impact behaviour, and some journeys are never finished. This only increases the importance of understanding how people interact with you and with your competitors.
By knowing your customers, you'll also understand your true competitors, the organisations your customers consider alongside you. This knowledge will then inform your strategy, ensuring your priorities and actions are centred on the customer needs. A key area overlooked in many organisations is empowerment of customer-facing staff. How annoying is it when a staff member has to seek out higher management to authorise a refund or replacement for obviously faulty goods? The organisations that enable customer-facing personnel to make judgment calls and support customers typically have less dissatisfied customers. Once these core principles are in place, tracking of performance against customer-focused KPIs is important to maintain and improve the customer experience. An important part of building a customer-centric organisation is collecting continual feedback at an interval suited to your organisation. It is not enough to collect feedback once and become complacent, as customers may use your service many times and have differing experiences. The feedback collection intervals will depend on your organisation type. For example, a retail outlet could use a kiosk-based survey which allows customers to give feedback at the point of transaction at each visit. Other organisations providing a service may benefit from collecting feedback on a quarterly basis. However, be aware of survey fatigue. Demanding feedback after every visit can be tiresome for customers and make them unlikely to give feedback. Or worse, they may give you a negative review due to feeling pestered. Therefore, every successful customer-focused organisation sets goals and monitors progress. Setting goals is not about saying we want 10 out of 10 for everything. It is about being challenging but realistic. Setting goals based on movement from current performance, available resources and achievable timing is key to getting buy-in and achieving those goals. A continuous cycle of monitoring progress, rewarding success and updating goals to meet changing customer needs should be an embedded process within every organisation.
It's been proven many times that standing still in customer service levels is not an option. Providing the same service levels as last year is unlikely to generate the same level of customer satisfaction. Expectations are on the increase all the time in all aspects of life, so organisations need to keep improving the services they provide. So that brings us to the end of our webinar series. We've provided a whistle-stop tour of customer satisfaction research and why it's so important to understand how your customers, visitors, patients, guests feel about their experience with you. We'd be pleased to provide more information and answer any questions you may have, so do please get in touch if you'd like to know more. we're always happy to talk to our customers. And, as you might expect, we'd also like your feedback on this webinar series, so please do let us know what you think. Thank you.